basically surpluses. And I think in 8 years down the line, I don't think the economic survey or the RBI governor are, revealing any secrets when they say that we have serious problems. And the credit or the discredit of that management goes on the government. So I think, just because the government has not performed itself, it brings a big ticket reform to remove focus and the timing of it, which I think Ms. Banerjee has raised it, our party has raised it too, that, the timing is, just out there to remove this whole focus away from Colgate and the scams.
The timing is perfect for you. I'm sorry, the timing is perfect because this is a time when you can actually politically posture because the government is in a very, very weak spot. The economy is in a bad shape. I agree with you. I agree with you that, the economic, conditions right now are not conducive to all the reforms that we want because the first thing we have to really focus on is our infrastructure. But I think equally, I think FDI in retail is something that should have happened years ago. And I think on the basis of what it can do for our economy, we should not be debating this. I think if we have multi-brand retail in the domestic space where domestic players are freely allowed to do what they want, I don't see why we have to be so xenophobic. And as far as the whole legislation is concerned,
all right, let me just update all our panelists on some news that is coming in with sources telling NDTV that the Prime Minister has said that told his ministers that we are staying the course, saying we have an unfinished agenda. We will ask like-minded people to help us with the economy. The government has taken a stand. Looks like there will be no compromise, and that's perhaps something that everyone here on the panel, except Nalin, of course, was hoping that the government would do. But we're going to take a quick break at this point, but we're going to continue our discussion as to what the unfinished agenda for the government should be here on. That's coming up after a break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Here with We Mean Business today. Mamata Banerjee has said she means business. The Prime Minister in turn has said he means business as well. So how will this really pan out? We'll have to wait and see. Jyotinder Kaur, my question to you is, with the Prime Minister saying there is an unfinished agenda and they're staying the course, how are you reading that very strong and important statement of the Prime Minister?
Well, if the government stays on and stays on without allies that have so far been pulling it back, and the fact that the Prime Minister realizes that there is still an unfinished agenda, the kind of implementation reforms that I was talking to you about, the power sector, land acquisition, environmental clearances, these kind of nuts and bolts reforms. If that is really what the Prime Minister means, then I'm reading it fairly positively. Don't forget that the measures that have been announced so far have a somewhat lagged impact on growth. If the Prime Minister is aiming to concentrate on implementation issues now, the impact is going to be far more quick, and we may see some upside to growth in FY13 itself.
All right, let me actually also quickly read out what Digvijay Singh has tweeted just now, saying the FDI decision was taken in national interest, fully knowing its political fallout. I hope the government would stand firm as it did in the nuclear deal. It has been, Kiran Shaw, a nuclear deal moment for the government deciding to stay firm. Perhaps we have to give the government full marks for that one, at least, having criticized it all this while for policy paralysis, having done all the kind of government bashing that we've seen from corporate India. Would you agree?
Well, I think, it's good to see some strong, at least economic leadership from Mr. Chidambaram, and I'm glad the Prime Minister has made such an emphatic statement. I wish it had happened a while ago. I think, Mr. Chidambaram should have been in this position, I think, a few years ago, and things may have been different, but as they say, it's better late than never. It remains to be seen if the government can still hang on to power, but at least they are sending the right signals.
They're sending the right signals, and that's what's perhaps needed. Mr. Sanjeev Aga, just to take forward what Kiran Shaw is saying there, the fact that many believe that this kind of courage should have been shown a little while ago. It may be a little too late to actually turn around the kind of negative sentiment that we've seen. And also given the fact that, Jatinder was saying there's a lag effect to any of the measures that you introduce. So in that sense, you've already slowed down the economy so badly, and now you're showing the courage, so perhaps too little too late.
Yes, well, I agree with what you say. I agree with what Kiran says, because I can't pardon. I'm no one to pardon or not pardon, but I, as an individual, can't pardon what was not done in the last several years, including, as I said, setting minimum standards of governance and integrity. But having said that, anytime it happens, it's welcome. But I also want to, mention, because this discussion has come up as to what impact it has on the common man. Just go back in the 1950s and early 1960s, late 1940s. The first elections were in 1952, where I think the literacy rate was probably around 30% or 40%. But people don't decide issues. They decide their faith in people. And they trust that people will take the right decision in the national interest. So what we are having is both a communication problem, but we are also having a trust problem. And I hope, I have an assessment that all political parties are now realizing that the 5 years government is not going to stay the course. Everyone is going to time himself, that what is the right time to pull it down. Is it 2013? Is it 2012? Is it early 2014? So I think idealism has taken a walk from India very long back. I'm very happy about these economic steps which have been taken, but unfortunately I do think that it's been a little late.
Okay, Mr. Aga, in that sense, a quick response from you as to what has really changed between last Thursday and now. And it's been a dramatic few days that we've seen ever since the decision of the diesel hike on Thursday. What was your rating of the government, perhaps on a scale of 1 to 10 before Thursday and today?
I wouldn't rate the government on this. This is an individual decision, maybe of the Prime Minister, maybe of the Chairperson, maybe of the Finance Minister. I think it is driven by personal assessments, psychological factors to which none of us are privy. But it is quite likely that having got bashed so much, any human being says that, at least if I have to, or let me be myself. You're turned into mice. So you want to stand up and say, this is what I stand for. So I think this is welcome, and any time a right step, I hope we've got a panelist. I hope someday Mr. Kohli will also come around and say that this was the right time. There is no harm. I know he will dislike me for saying it, but our respect for people goes up if they concede that they may have taken a wrong step and they are right to set right or wrong. So I do hope that from this mess we get a better parliament next time, whether it is 1 year or 2 years. The worst thing that will happen in India is we keep on having these minority governments with no regard for the national interest, who keep pulling the country from one place to another.
Mr. Aga, I must admit that you've been making some very, very valid points, and certainly I think that, when you're looking at it from the national perspective, those are points that anyone would respect. The point, I just have something to add here, and I'm not trying to be pessimistic, I'm just trying to look at it as a political person. I don't know whether we can expect single party rule so easily, because since '89 we've had non-stop only coalition governments. And very early on in the show I was mentioning to Shweta that I think, the way forward has to be consensus building, and certainly, while it may sound painful, but democracy itself has its own evolving mechanism. We can't really impose anything on democracy, because that's the best we know of, and that's the only system we can depend on. So therefore, this consensus building, I think over a period of time will bring about balance, because what we are seeing is that the centrist approach, now states are also having their own way of looking at it, and while it may seem painful in terms of, how coalitions play out, I think there's a way forward, and we have to be optimistic. So, I think that's how I would personally add to it.
Mr. Dua, I'd like you, sorry, you have something to say before I ask the question.
Shweta, you had used the phrase possibly the Prime Minister or the government had come to a conclusion, enough is enough.
Right.
I think that was the tipping point, enough is enough. Now,
would you like to give that ranking that I'd asked Mr. Aga? Because you also mentioned about the trust, the faith. I'm trying to gauge the turn in sentiment in the last few days. That's the kind of assessment we're trying to make.
I think these decisions have improved the credibility of the government with the people.
It
Definitely.
Completely improved.
Even with the critics, this credibility goes up. They have decided to take decisions which actually decision making and was on a holiday.
Decision making was on a holiday, and one of the strongest critics of the government has actually been Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. How much of the sentiment has changed, ma'am? And your rating, ranking, view of the government from Thursday till now?
You know, I don't want to rate the government on any kind of ranking. All I would say is it's high time they, you know, woke up. I think they've been a bit too late to take such bold decisions. It should have happened much earlier on. I would say that if they come out stronger, if they can stay afloat, then I think I would rank them and say this was a good step they took and their ratings have gone up. But I think let's wait and see what happens. You know, as I said, I think at least we are seeing some economic leadership, which I think has been long wanting.
All right, Jatendra, to you really, before we end the show, we've always seen politics overtaking good economics. Are we finally going to see that economics will prevail over politics?
I certainly hope so. At the end of the day, you have to realize that politicians live in an economy and they can't escape it. I certainly hope that the government, in whatever form it is in right now, steps ahead and focuses on implementation now, not just on the big bang reforms that have been announced.
All right, we'll have to wait and see. Now, I know you have a comment to make. Quick one.
You know, very quick. I think, you know, the common factor that's been coming is, through many of the panelists, that this government seems to have been sleeping for a very, very long time. And because it finally took a decision,
let's congratulate
everyone is so
happy.
But, you know, I think the cost that we are paying for that delay is quite high. And I think just, you know...
But not waking up also is a bigger cost. Not waking
up at all. Well, I don't know. I really don't know. Because, you know, sometimes you push the patient into the ICU and then the ICU disease really takes its own toll.
Ma'am, your last comments, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw.
Yeah, just one comment. You know, we are talking about the economy, we are talking about a declining economy, and here we are facing a Bharat Bandh the day after tomorrow. I really hope that the opposition parties would call it off, because we don't need these kind of steps. We must be more responsible.
Shweta, these reforms, well, I mean, for the final sprint, I think as a lot of people were saying, this is actually meant to take effect over a period of time. This government's USP was economic reforms and economic growth, and they can't go into the next election with 5% growth. So
absolutely,
I think that is the thinking behind this whole spurt in reforms.
On the Bharat Bandh, you know, I think the critical factor on the Bharat Bandh, one of the factors is going to be price rise, and probably, you know, 75-80% of this country, maybe 90% of this country has had to face with doubling or trebling of the commodities that they use in daily day. You'll be surprised, ma'am, how many people would support that.
All right, we'll have to wait and see what kind of support comes in for that Bharat Bandh.
Madam, it's not good economics to take away whatever little earning is there in the smallest pocket and reduce it. It's not. I just want to make the point. Someone whose earning level is 5 or 10,000 rupees and even less than that, for them, when the dal becomes from 30 to 90, or, you know, everything just keeps going up, it's not easy life. And for them, the economics, it's really good economics if prices were in control.
All right, clearly the government has a lot of answering to do when it comes to rising inflation, but for now it has decided to take a stand when it comes to the wave of reforms that we saw the government saying we're going to stay the course, and we have an unfinished agenda, a very strong stand that the government has taken on a day when Mamata Banerjee has decided to pull the plug. Will we see any allies coming forward and supporting the government or not? That remains to be seen. But for now, it seems like good economics will prevail over politics. With that, it's a wrap here on We Mean Business. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.